What's the rudest thing a guest in your home has done? I had a friend who used to jump onto furniture like lawn chairs and stuff. He claimed it wouldn't break it. But sometimes he did break stuff and he just complained it's not his fault but that the furniture was too fragile. Stole $70. Shot meth in my bathroom. Dropped lit cigarettes on my carpet. Tried to justify it by saying they cleaned my sink. Edit. Holy duck, thank you for the silver. Let their child punch our brand new TV and laughed as he did it as if it was cute. Used my laptop to watch porn and it ended up with tons of viruses. Took a big dump and put almost a whole roll of toilet paper in the toilet. Told my nephew his friend was never allowed back. Edit. This was 10 to 12 years ago. Tried to crawl into bed with me while I was asleep with my husband next to me in bed. Creepy and rude. Stole money from our engagement cards. At our house. During our engagement party. My mum welcomed a faraway cousin or someone into our house. He walked into the kitchen where my dad was sitting watching TV and said, "And who the duck is this?" When I was in university, one of roommates asked if a high school friend of his from back home could come visit and stay in our apartment for a night or two. I agreed. But I was writing midterms and was stressed beyond belief, so I firmly requested that they not party at our place so that I could get to sleep uninterrupted. I came home from the library at 11 PM and they were both it-faced. My roommate was passed out in his bedroom. There was rank smelling puke all over the toilet seat. And his friend had brought a girl home from the campus bar and was currently having sex in my bed. WTF. I kicked his and her asses out of the apartment. And then ended up doing laundry at 11:30 PM because my sheets were sweaty and covered in their duck juices. I no longer speak with this roommate. I've made this post before so I'll just copy paste it here. Not my house but my car. I don't have many rules for passengers when I'm driving, but there are two I will never budge on. 1. Wear your seatbelt. 2. Do not smoke in my car. I had just bought a car. It wasn't brand new but I knew the previous and only owner and I knew he was a car guy who took meticulous care of his cars inside and out. He wouldn't even sell me the car before he had given the engine a proper service. Within a week of getting the car, a friend asked for a lift to the train station. I knew he smoked, so as we walked to the car I told him specifically to wait until we get to the station before he lights up. A 10-minute ride at most. I back out of the parking spot. Drive to the exit of the parking lot and as I check my left hand side for oncoming cars I hear from my right the distinctive sound of a lighter sparking up. Dude could not even ducking wait until we were out of the ducking car park before he just had to have his goddamn cigarette. I asked him what the hell he thinks he's doing and he just looks at me and says, "Relax. It's not like it's a new car." Ducker ended up walking to the train station. Male friend asked that my partner and I take ourselves and our less than 12-month-old daughter to a motel for a night whilst he uses our house to try his luck with one of our female friends we invited over for a game night. Told their children ages 4 and 8 that they can put their feet with their shoes on our furniture. Their justification was that we let our dog get on the furniture. My husband told them no feet on our furniture previously and this pissed the parent off. My ex-girlfriend got it-faced drunk at my grandmother's funeral, then got into a screaming match with my brother and dad in the front yard. Oh, I forgot this one. A friend of a relative stayed with my parents for a week. The guy was Argentinian. Late 50s. He was very old-fashioned. Religious etc. For example, he even told my parents that it was wrong that I was living with my boyfriend without being married. One day he asked my mum to use her PC to check his email was in there for quite a while. Right. You guessed it, he was watching porn. But I guess he didn't remember the website he wanted because he first googled in Spanish young ladies with dark hair having sex and a few variations of that. My mum found all that in her internet history. Called him out. He tried to blame my then 16-year-old brother, who had his own PC, speaks mostly English, wouldn't have googled in Spanish, and was away in a camping trip. He wasn't welcomed back. Mum's cousin visited with a friend. Cousin and friend were early 20s, old enough to be decent house guests. Mum ordered takeaway for the adults and put fish fingers and chips in the oven for us kids. Before the takeaway turned up, the guests decided they were hungry and ate the fish fingers without telling anyone. Mum opened the oven to find a tray of chips and an empty tray where the fish fingers should have been, and had to put more on so we wouldn't go hungry. It seems small now, but who the hell eats a child's dinner when theirs is less than 10 minutes away? Edit. Stop suggesting they were stoned, oh my ducking god. My cousin and her daughter, who has Down syndrome, were visiting and staying with me in my home. Her kid pooped in a quilt, and for some reason my cousin rolled it up and shoved it in the closet in the guest room without telling me. I discovered it after they left. It was rolled up pretty good, so I didn't smell it immediately, because my dog stood in front of the closet and barked non-stop until I came and found it. She was so offended by it and didn't stop barking until it was completely cleaned up. Haha. Edit. I called her and said, I found the quilt from your bed rolled up with poop in the closet. What happened? And she said, oh. Daughter had an accident. Sorry. I had people over at my apartment and someone's friend upper decked my toilet. When a niece came in and immediately stood in front of the TV and changed the channel. She was around 15. There was several people watching it. I had a house guest invited by a roommate have a psychotic breakdown. He literally came into all our rooms, rummaged through our drawers, and left anything of sexual value on top of the dresser or nightstand as if to announce that he went through it all. Condoms, lube, birth control pills, etc. He found ways to expose himself and walked in on my roommates having sex. We kicked him out inside of 48 hours. It should have been sooner. We changed the locks. We actually all knew this guy and hosted him before, and he was great. We were cleaning house a few months later and found a bag of his pubes. My grandfather's cousin was staying with us for a week. He has a bladder problem and would refuse to wear adult diapers. What followed was him leaving a trail of pee, sometimes poo, when he walked around the house. Didn't take too long for my mother to ask his son to take him back home. A friend of mine demanded that my dad give her his iPhone charger. Not to borrow, to keep. He politely declined and she huffed off muttering about how he was too old for an iPhone anyway. He was 49 at the time. She now wonders why he doesn't talk to her. Came over for lunch. Assumed they'd be spending the night at my place. Got mad when I told them that the invitation was for lunch only. Our family. The whole story. Not ducking flushing the goddamn toilet. A few friends and I were having some drinks last summer when a guy we know showed up at my house uninvited with a friend of his who was so drunk he immediately passed out on my couch. This now sleeping dude drove both of them to my house. Guy continues to get blasted and do coke. Complained about the music we were listening to and kept trying to put his own terrible punk band on. He cornered my wife and demanded she change her shirt because he has beef with the singer in the band on her shirt. Refused to sit in anything other than a broken chair that we had to put in another room when he went to the bathroom. Then complained when it was 6 AM and we said we're going to bed. Waking his drunk friend up saying I guess we're getting kicked out. Then they both left in drunk dude's car. My boyfriend invited a couple dudes over while I was at work because we only have a 1-bedroom apartment and I don't always enjoy sitting there watching them game. It was considerate. Anyways, he was asleep and they were gone when I got home since I work third shift. I noticed my new bathroom mat was discolored and assumed it was from shoes and didn't closely observe. Anyways, I made him look at it with me when he got up because I was a bit mad since it was brand new. Upon further observation, we came to the conclusion that before leaving, his friend wiped it all over my new bathroom mat. It turned out to be brown finger streaks across the whole thing. Threw that out immediately. The toilet paper was readily available BTW. They are not allowed in the apartment anymore. And it was weird because they weren't on bad terms, they actually wanted to hang out again. Insisted on making dinner. Burned the steaks. Insisted on making hamburgers. I told him I didn't like onions. Made the hamburgers with chunks of onions. I tried to eat one. But chunks of raw onions is not something I want to eat. He made beans in a crock pot. But didn't refrigerate them overnight. Just left them out in the crock pot. Plugged it in the next morning and let them cook all day the second day. Claimed if there was any bacteria in there, cooking it killed it all. Repeated for a week. Spouse and I ate the beans the first night and refused any leftovers. We had record heat for days on end. So we ran the air conditioning. He would not quite shut the door to the outside, leaving a small crack letting the cool air out and his smoking in. Every time I passed by, I'd shut the door till it latched. Worse. We had indoor only cats and they would occasionally escape because he could not understand that the door needed to be shut. He left open potatoes chip bags in the pantry. It wasn't any one thing. Although food poisoning and endangering the cats were pretty close, it was the conglomeration of a lot of little things. We had a baby shower at my house. My aunt is a landlord and was also in attendance. At the time there was a no dogs allowed policy. A guest brought their chihuahua and let it loose in the house. I thought my aunt was gonna have a heart attack and the dog was scared by all the people and couldn't be caught until after the party. They never even asked if it was okay to bring their dog. I let a guy I knew from college crash at my place for a few days when he was in town for a conference. Fed him. Drank a bunch of liquor with him. etc. Thought I was being very hospitable. He had an early flight, so on the last day he left before I woke up. Went into my bathroom and saw he had taken my bar of soap and written some stupid song lyrics all over my bathroom mirror. This was the master bathroom, so it had 2 sinks and the mirror was like 8 feet by 4 feet at least. It was huge letters and there was more soap than mirror. Took me hours to get it clean. Like what the duck dude. I forgot about the girl I hadn't seen in years showing up to my parents' house unannounced. I was so happy to see her. So she came home with me and we ate dinner and caught up on life. She stayed the night since it was so late. The next day she confessed she was just released from jail and had nowhere to go. We tried getting rid of her for weeks. Then one day we stopped in Walgreens for something and she stole stuff. After that my grandpa told her to suck off a trucker if she had to, but she was leaving no matter what. I dropped her off at the train station. She called me 20 minutes later but I refused to answer. Haven't heard from her since. When I was living with my ex, who was an alcoholic and had a lot of mental issues, one of his friends from his past asked to stay over for a day or two. They drank a lot. I woke up in the middle of the night with the friend standing in our bedroom pissing against the bedroom window. When I woke up my ex, he didn't think it was that big of a deal. That is the day I packed my it and left. Edit. Wow, I got sick and didn't go on Reddit for a day. Thanks for the silver. Neighbor and my dad were talking in the living room when they both watched his son knock chocolates all over an expensive carpet. The neighbor then let my 60-year-old dad get on his hands and knees to fish around 20 chocolates without helping and continuing the conversation as though it hadn't happened. This was the same neighbor who let his son knock glass baubles off our Christmas tree and didn't apologize. It was the same neighbor who asked my mum to pick up bottled water and wine from the shop for a party she wasn't even invited to. It was all the subtle things that make you think you're a bit of a D. Aren't you? Then. It was the same neighbor, who lived above us, that didn't come around to look at the damage his broken boiler had done when the water drenched our very large bookcase and then seeped to the floor below to our kitchen. He and his wife were the same neighbors who asked us, the first time we had met, when we were moving out because they wanted to buy the entire house. He tried to buy it 5 years later but we rejected his bid, waiting for a higher bidder which came the next day. Left their drunk girlfriend in my house emotionally distraught. Charged back in and was very aggro with my roommate and then proceeded to decide they were entitled to sleeping in my bed and getting drunker. Wasn't in town to defend my house and was very angry to find evidence of someone sleeping in my room, much less my bed. We had a party at our house. Guests ended up using the bathroom in our bedroom as well because of lines on the guest toilet. We had one of those only attached to the wall and no legs to support sinks on top of a slim long shelf kinda thing. They sat on the damn thing and broke it. I was beyond belief how someone could sit on something that looks, feels and very obviously shows it is not made to carry weight and is not supported. Now it has legs. I had been on a few dates with this guy. One night after we went out he dropped me off at my apartment and we were talking. The conversation was getting long and I was super tired, so I told him I was going to go to sleep and it was time for him to go. He insisted on walking me up to my bedroom, which I thought was a little weird, plus my room was super messy at the time and I was embarrassed. I said it a bunch of times. but he really didn't seem to get the message that I was just going to stay in the living room until he left. So I said that I had just gotten really tired and I would just fall asleep on the couch. Maybe that would get him to leave. No. It prompted him to go upstairs into my bedroom, take the comforter off my bed, and bring it downstairs to the couch for me. I never went out with him again. I was having a Halloween party 4 or 5 years ago and this girl, I do not, just started smashing the pumpkins we had as interior decorations. Like, excuse me ho, what is wrong with you? We welcomed my uncle, his wife and their kid into our home when they visited from abroad. The wife brought about a dozen of her own relatives with them, including a handful of young kids, and didn't tell us beforehand. We scrambled to set up beds and meals and prepare the bathrooms to accommodate them. Found out later that she was charging her relatives to stay at our house. They brought a hooker and spilled the hot coals on my carpet. They then yelled at me to clean it up. That was the last time I ever allowed anything close to a party at my house. Checking my cabinets. Why are you going to someone's house and checking what they have stored away? I found someone sneaking into my room and checking my drawers. Stole $100. But this story has a happy ending. When I was young I had 3 friends over, all of them brothers. The oldest was my age, the middle was a couple years younger, same age as my brother, and they had brought their youngest brother with them. He was a little itch. Well, that day my dad let me hang on to a $100 bill because I thought it was cool and had never seen one. I showed it off to my friends and left it on my side table. I didn't even notice it go missing. Well, here's how the story goes. My friends had left, and when they got near their house, the youngest brother pulled out the $100 and said, "Hey guys, look what I took." The 2 older brothers got pissed. They dragged him crying all the way back to my house, handed me the $100 that I hadn't even realized was missing, and forced him to apologize. Friends of integrity right there. Went through the pantry like it was theirs, didn't ask or anything. First time over, walked right into the kitchen, found the pantry, opened it and grabbed the family size bag of Doritos and started eating it. I hate when people bring their dogs. I mean, if you want your dog inside, that's your decision, but don't force it on me and my dog free home. Came to a house party and had a shower in the middle of it. Washed his hair with vinegar in our one bathroom. Would not leave the next day until 40 minutes after I had asked. Tried steam cleaning around them. Finally breathed out a sigh of relief, went to shower my hangover away. Put on a towel. The vinegar nearly spewed. I came downstairs to find her holding an entire block of cheddar cheese and taking bites out of it like a sandwich. A sadder one. My housemate at the time let an ex-girlfriend of his stay at our place when she was in town for the weekend. She spent the entire time lying on our couch watching TV doing whippets, nitrous gas. She was hardcore addicted. Like she'd crack one every 10 minutes it seemed. Showed up with boxes and boxes of them and just let them pile up on the ground beneath her. After like 36 hours of this, my housemate finally convinced her to go outside for a walk or something. Another friend of mine and I cleaned it all up. I wish we'd counted, but there were easily 100 of the small canisters. I think he kinda tore into her about it and told her to get help. She left shortly thereafter. I heard a while later that she quit doing it because she had nerve damage in her foot from it and it was permanently numb. Be careful with drugs, kids.